Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Hello, everyone. This is Guy with Jewelry Store Marketers, and I am here for another episode of the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry podcast. And my lovely co-host, Elisa Dillon, is not here with us, but I'm very lucky today to have Doris Butler of Butler Diamonds here with us. And we reached out to Doris Butler for the podcast because Doris was actually featured on the Southern Jewelry News website and in the paper and that article titles Butler Diamonds, a good thing in a small package. So Doris, thank you so much for coming on here and talking to us on the podcast. Could you tell us about your experience? And I read it, but could you give us a little history lesson about Doris, about Butler Diamonds?
Well, sure. And thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate being here. Yeah, I got started. My father bought the store accidentally. He had been in radio and he bought the store when I was just a baby. And so, I really grew up in the store and loved it from day one. And I'm an only child. So my parents would take me down there to the store and let me run around while they were working late at night. And it was just a great experience growing up in the store. And I'm so glad I had that experience. And it's just led me to where I am today.
That's fantastic. I did see a lot of history, and it was a big store, and now you kind of went through a lot of changes, and so you're a second generation jeweler.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And your dad still helps you or mentors you.
He does. He's 85 and he taught me everything I know, but he comes down here and helps me. And he can't ring somebody up in the cash register, which is the computer now. He can't do that, but he can tell you the difference between good pearls and bad pearls, and he can sort diamonds and he can do that kind of thing. So I let him help me whenever he feels like coming down, and he is a great help. And of course my customers love him. He's like a pillar of the community and an icon, and they just really appreciate his presence when he's here.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't you talk about that a little? I mean, it looks like you've been in is it Selma area for quite a while?
Selma, Alabama.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the central part of the state. People say if you try to go into the heart of Dixie any further, you start coming out the other side. So, so it's very southern, and I really have great customers, and I really am appreciative that I got to grow up in the South. I love it. There's no place like Alabama. If anybody's listening who's never been to Alabama, you're invited, and you will like it. You might stay.
Fantastic. I think there's a lot of history in Selma, and not just your store, but
right.
Just so much. And your store is right in downtown, or in the downtown area?
In the downtown area. Used to, when the big store that I closed in 2017 was right on the main street. It's called Broad Street, and it's 2 blocks from the bridge that is so famous for the Civil Rights March. And I am about 2 blocks from that location now, on the second floor in an office building.
Right. Okay. There's a lot of jewelers that have been in their location, in their towns, in their stores for a long time, just like you. There's a lot of new jewelers, but there's a lot of the jewelry industry is kind of like an industry that's been around and passed down to generations. How do you think it has helped you as a jeweler now that you're second generation and been in such a prominent area and grew up in the jewelry industry? You think that gave you a benefit or an edge over people that are just getting into it, learning?
I can't imagine just getting into it now without having a mentor like my father. It would be very, very difficult to get into it now. He learned a lot of things just by trial and error that then he taught me that I didn't have to learn by trial and error. And so I think it's great to be a second generation. And I can't recommend that because you only had that available if your family was already in the business. But
Right,
I am
right.
glad to have had him teaching me all my life, really.
That's great. I think it's a common problem or common, let's say, challenge in the jewelry industry is the succession. right.
Right.
There, we hear it, and organizations like RJO have the succession planning and really help try to do their part and help in the succession. But some jewelry store owners that have had their stores for such a long time are trying to figure out, how do I pass this on,
Mhm.
or how do I get my kids involved, or maybe they don't have someone like that.
Well, I'm
And
in that situation too. I
oh
have
yeah,
one son, and sent him when we took him out of college and sent him to one of the jewelry schools, just a week long course, one of those short courses. And he didn't take to it like we thought he would, because he didn't have anybody to apprentice under. Jewelry
mm,
bench work is really something that is, you almost have to apprentice under somebody with that.
right.
And so he's not in the business anymore. And,
Mhm.
I want him to be happy. But if I could wave my magic wand, I would put him right here next to me and make him third generation. It just
Right.
wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
So that's okay. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is a challenge that we hear a lot, and yeah, at some point you're going to probably want to start figuring out how to move on to relaxing or something, and
Mm.
and I know RJO. You are an RJO member, right? Because I
Yes,
read
I
that.
am
Yeah,
an RJO
that's right.
member. And I thought when I downsized that I was going to have to get out of RJO. And fortunately, there was a man who is now deceased, but his name was Richard Jackson. And Richard worked for Chuck Fry, and Chuck
Yeah,
Fry has the going out of business sales
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
you know, ma change of ownership sales and all that. And Chuck sent Richard to be our supervisor. And Richard
Hmm.
suggested that I do this and be a concierge jeweler, or whatever the label you want to give it. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
am so grateful to him that he recommended that, because, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I don't think I would have tried to do that without his encouragement.
Right,
And
right.
so that's how I wound up doing this.
Right, right. That's fantastic. So currently, what is your setup in your store? Do you have open hours, or is it by appointment only, or how does it work now?
Yeah, I have some set hours, of course.
Hmm.
I prefer to be by appointment only, but I do have set hours, and I have my door closed in case a customer does come to the door while we're recording.
Hmm.
But yeah, that would be the hardest thing about being by myself, is
Hmm.
trying to juggle customers, because, I'm the only one here to wait on them.
Got it.
Sometimes if my dad's here, he'll entertain them for a little while until I can get
Hmm.
to them. But but yes, back to your original question about RJO. I tell you,
Yeah.
it has been such. I mean, I'm just so grateful to RJO. I would not be where I am today if not for RJO, and it gives me access to. It lets me operate as a large store. I have access to anything anybody wants. Somebody wants a 10-carat diamond, I can get it for them, because I can get it through RJO, and like, any company knows they're going to be paid for whatever I order. And it has been the key to my success, I would really say, is RJO.
Fantastic. That's great. Um, from what I read in your in the article and what you're saying, you were in a store that had more people and bigger store, and now you're in a store by yourself at the moment, and many times that's the situation, other than when your dad is there.
Mhm.
But what's the difference? What's the pros and cons, and do you like this better? And how's that experience been for you? That transition?
Well, the actual transition was difficult, and it was scary, because I
Mm,
did not know whether I would be able to support myself. But I went from a store that was losing a lot of money to a store now that is making money. And so that is just, I can't tell you the relief to know that now I am making it work. And it is just so much better, because, well, the number of reasons. It is so much better because my customers are only being helped by me. I do
mhm.
not have to worry about an employee not knowing their answer or giving them false information accidentally.
Right,
I
right.
had wonderful employees, and one of the reasons I didn't want to close the store was I was worried about what they were going to do to earn a living, and kept it open probably for much longer than I should have. But that's one of the downsides of this, is not having employees to help me do anything. But the good side is that the buck stops here with me, and the word I think has gotten out around town with my local customers that they are going to get me to help them, and they're going to get good service, and they're going to get the correct answers. And I don't have to go ask somebody else what the answer is to a certain question. So that has
Right.
been just really beneficial.
Got it. Got it. So, so you were in a bigger store. How many employees at that time?
When I closed, we had about 7 full-time employees and a number of part-time employees. When we were at our largest, we had about 24 employees, I think,
Wow.
was the most we had. So
Was
we were
that,
really large.
yeah, was that a tough decision to say, okay, my God, let me close my store?
Yes, it was a very tough decision. And we had previous management had made some bad business decisions and had gotten into some um, financial
Hmm.
trouble.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do was to pay off the bank was to liquidate the inventory.
Got it.
And the first thought was, and Chuck Fry guided me through this. I do have to give him credit for this. It was either have an inventory reduction sale and hope to raise enough money to pay off the bank to make them happy, or to just close it and have a going out of business sale. And everybody knows that a going out of business sale will generate more money than just an inventory reduction sale.
Right.
So made the decision then to just go ahead and go out of business. And at first, I had full intention of just closing it down, trying to
Mhm.
find some other line of work.
Right.
And then that's when Richard Jackson suggested, no, you stay in business and customers are going to come to you. People are going to come to you for advice. They're going to come to you because of your reputation and you have that customer list. And he was right. I had no self confidence at that point. I was just distraught, but it worked out. And I'm just so grateful that it did.
What's the timing? How long ago was that?
That was the sale started at the end of 2016 and continued to the beginning of 2017. So I immediately transitioned to my small setup
Yeah.
in 2017.
Got it. Got it. And how soon after your one store closed that you opened up your new one?
I had a, a a big project in the works that I started before with a customer before the store closed. Had it in the works and actually delivered it from this location. So
Hmm.
it started immediately,
Got it.
and yeah, and
That's
it was
great.
difficult, but I did it. So
Right. So let's see. If there are jewelers out there that have a bigger store, have some employees, have a bigger store inventory, but they feel like they're drowning, maybe.
yeah.
There's debt. It's hard to stay, keep up or get ahead. What would your advice be, first step?
Well, it's difficult now to turn that around. And so the solution I would probably recommend to anyone would be to downsize, whether you just do what I'm doing completely with one person, or whether you just downsize and get rid of a lot of employees and have maybe two or three. I would recommend it. The first thing to do is to talk to Chuck Fry. He can, and that is see Chuck Fry and Company, I think is
Yep.
the name of his.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he can tell you how much money a sale will generate. So that then kind of you'll know from that what you need to do.
Right.
It was difficult with me. I liquidated the majority of the inventory and then had to start over and buy new inventory. But
Right.
a lot of that inventory needed to go away anyway. It was dated.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
so it really worked out and I got to start over. But yeah, I would
Fantastic.
if you don't mind, I work probably fewer hours, but I work smarter and I work harder when I am at work.
Hmm.
It's more taxing on my brain. I like
Right.
a good challenge. If you're not up for that, I don't know whether it would be the right fit for you, but I
Right.
was up for it and I have tackled it and I just think it's great.
Right. That's fantastic. I do have to say that Chuck is a good friend of mine. And
Good.
he's also a client of ours, and we rebuilt his website. And so I'm really happy that you keep mentioning Chuck and how great of a job they did, because they really do a great job,
Mhm.
and I consistently hear that. And shout out Chuck, good job, thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and also for RJO.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, what do you think your biggest challenge is as a, with a small operation, mostly by yourself? What's your
You
biggest
know,
challenge?
before the pandemic, I think my biggest challenge was trying to get the word out there that I am in business, and while still, trying to be safe because I am by myself. So I don't want to do a lot of local advertising to everybody in town. I just want to work with the top customers that I had. And I don't have costume jewelry, I don't have silver jewelry, and I don't have watches. I just have gold and platinum and gemstones and diamonds and pearls. And so that was my biggest challenge. But the my sales have really taken off, and now my biggest challenge is how to properly give good customer service to everybody without hiring somebody. And I really want to keep this small and not have to hire another employee, although it is a possibility. I'm not opposed to growing my business. I would have to get a larger location, so that's a challenge right now, and that's kind of a good problem to have, really.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Um, well, that's really good. What was it like growing up in the jewelry store?
It was great. I loved it. I couldn't wait to wait on somebody, and I was 5 years old when I first attempted to wait on somebody, and I couldn't see over the counter. So I pulled a stool up behind the counter, and I stood on the stool and waited for somebody to come in, and this man came in, and I asked him if I could help him, and he started laughing, and then my parents realized what was going on, and they came out and rescued him. And then when I was 8 years old, I made this awesome cash register out of a cardboard box. And then I would play games and I would stack invoices. And I didn't even really know what an invoice was, but I knew it was something important. And I really started working when I was 13 and worked every summer and every Christmas through high school and college. And so I love the people. I love being able, I'm a problem solver. I love being in on everybody's, engagement and anniversary and birthday presents. And and another thing that I think that I really like about the industry is that every project I have, whether it's just a repair or whether it's a remount or a custom design piece, or if they just come in and buy something out of the showcase, every every transaction is different. And that's a challenge for people in our business. And I think it's great. And it keeps my job from being boring. And
Mhm.
I love that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What's the what's the best story from your jewelry store experience that you have? So you have
The best story
yeah.
with a customer or
Yeah, or related to your jewelry store. Maybe it was the door. I don't know. Maybe it's the day you closed the door on the other store and got freedom, or maybe it's that customer that really loved the piece that you made. And
yeah,
what do you think about?
it would
Yeah,
definitely be, I can't think of a specific customer, but it would be seeing, and because this happens over and over, where you're in the grocery store and you see that customer with that special piece on that that I designed for them, or that their husband came in and picked out. That's what makes me the happiest, is to see people out at a restaurant and they have on that piece that took so much time and mental energy to come up with and design, and you see them loving it, enjoying it, and wearing it or passing it on to the daughter and the granddaughter. And that it's all of those stories that just light me up. I just love it.
that's great. That's great. Being in business for such a long time, have you seen a jewelry piece leave and come back and leave and come back? Is there anything like that? Is that, because of the service or, cleaning or anything along those lines and passed on? Have you seen that firsthand with the jewelry being passed on?
Oh yeah, because I've been around for quite a while,
That's great.
and people will come in. As a matter of fact, one of my posts on Facebook was a lady who had received her engagement ring in 1966. So she bought it from my dad, and her husband passed away, and so she didn't want to not wear it, but she didn't want to wear it as an engagement ring. So I mounted it into one of those pendant slides with the bezel,
Right.
and put it on the chain. And then when I got it back from being mounted, she let me photograph it and put it on Facebook, and it got more Instagram. It got more views than anything else I had posted, just about because it had that wonderful story with it from
Right.
1966, you know?
Right. That's great. When I first started my sales career when I was 16, someone told me that stories sell and facts just tell.
That's right.
And it's the stories. And that's why we love this podcast and want to get people on like you, because it's your story that people will be interested in. We're not just advertising someone's products or services or whatever they have.
Right.
It's the story. What advice can you give a new jeweler?
I will tell you something that an older gentleman told my dad years ago when he first wound up with the jewelry store. And he was about 25, I think, when he accidentally bought a jewelry store. That's another story.
Right.
But he was trying to figure out what to do. He'd saved up a little bit of money, and he wanted to know whether to invest in the stock market or to, buy more inventory and try to grow the store. And this older gentleman, who was a pretty well-known businessman in town, told him to always invest in yourself, because that's the best investment you will make. Count on yourself to allow you to have a return on investment, rather than a big company out there to invest in a stock or some bond and be dependent on that. I think that's the best advice I would give to someone just starting out right now, is invest in yourself.
Nice. So as a new jeweler, and they're going to invest in themselves, where would you think they could do that? Like training through apprenticeships? Where would you think the best investment? A good example of one.
My GIA background, the Gemological Institute of America, has really paid off. More so than I thought at the time when I was out there. It was a long time ago when I did it, but I'm so glad I have that knowledge in my background. And so I would recommend that. But yeah, you learn so much from other people. I learned so much just from going to the RJO shows, going to the Atlanta show, going to Las Vegas, and taking seminars. The Alabama Jewelers Association had just an awesome seminar this past weekend in conjunction with Jewelers of America, and they had some awesome seminars on Saturday that I attended, and that keeps keeps me going, and it inspires you, and it keeps you knowledgeable about the industry. And I think all of that is so important.
Right. So I guess one of the advice would be join RJO.
Well, if you can't get in, join another one. Go to the educational seminars. So they have them in Atlanta, they have them in Las Vegas, they have them everywhere. But networking with other people, you just learn so much from you stand in line for a hot dog and you meet somebody from out of state and also owns a jewelry store. It's the same problems you do, and it's just those are what make another thing that to me that makes the jewelry industry so exciting. It's exciting and it's fun.
Right. Well, I certainly hope to see you in Philadelphia and other shows coming up at the Atlanta show in Philadelphia. And so fantastic. That's great. Well, this is the Pearls of Wisdom. Is there any other pearls of wisdom that you would like to share to anyone out there?
Well, let me just throw out there, if you are a jeweler and you're thinking about downsizing and you want to know how it works, I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. My phone number is all on, I've got a website. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. It's Butler Diamonds and Fine Jewelry. And just feel free to email me or call me, and I'll be happy to tell you sort of, some of the what I've been through and what I would recommend.
Right. Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. It's going to be amazing. There are probably a lot of jewelers out there that have the questions and probably thinking like, what should I do? And, speaking to a peer, someone else in the same position or have gone through it really will help. So that's really generous of you. I think that's it. I mean, it was amazing to really talk to you here and great to read about your story, but now we get the voice and get you. And that's amazing. Hey, if you're listening out there, make sure you reach out to Doris and you want to hear, hear about her story and get advice. And she's really open to it. And I really appreciate you coming on here, Doris. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we look forward to catching you somewhere.
Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, everyone, thanks for just tuning in again for the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry podcast. Catch this is going to be releasing sometime soon, but catch all of our episodes. Subscribe, like us, do all that stuff, and we'll see you at the next show somewhere. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry podcast. For more information about the show, please visit southernjewelrynews.com/podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you can catch the next show. See you then.